Once upon a time, there was an endless wasteland, two wandering souls, and a single red thread, burning up through the dust. Under the sky, in an endless sea of dust and rust and broken things, there was a magpie boy. Under the wastes, in an endless labyrinth of crossed paths and dead ends and double backs and dark, there was a lost girl. The boy was a treasure hunter, an explorer, a pirate with a shard of an old radio antenna for a sword and a jam jar for a water skin. The wasteland was a horizon in every direction, laid bare and bleak but heavy, so heavy, with relics and secrets and stories and shine. There were as many stones as there were stars, and the boy couldn't leave a single one unturned. And so he'd go, day in and day out, wandering, seeking, hunting, finding, turning the best treasures into weight in his pockets. As for the girl, well, the girl was many things, but at the point where we come in, she was well and truly lost. The decision to delve into the mines had been a flippant one, uncharacteristically flippant. A spark of dangerous optimism that had swiftly burnt its fuse straight down to an ill-advised endeavor. The gaping maw of forgotten territory had seemed inviting at the time. The dark had seemed almost comforting, like shelter from a storm. And it was, for a time. That was before the thread had snapped. Being curious but cautious, like so many mythwalkers before her, she began her descent with a lifeline. She always had carried with her a spool of thread that never seemed to empty, in a color that she'd never seen anywhere else. It was red as a cardinal from most glances, but had the emerald black shift of a crow's wing from a certain few others. She'd found it in a dream, and awoke with it in her pocket. Or at least, she thought that was how she'd gotten it. She'd had it as long as she could remember, and always used it to find her way back from anywhere she might have gone. Until the thread had never broken before. Maybe the dark wasn't as friendly as she thought. Maybe the edges of the rocks were too jagged, the air too damp, or the tunnels too twisted. Nevertheless, eventually she discovered that there she stood, with the frayed and aching end of the thread in her hand, and a growing dread in her throat. A grime-covered Orpheus, with nothing behind her but a grave mistake. Somewhere above and beyond, the magpie boy had made a discovery of his own. Buried in the most unremarkable rubble he had ever seen, a pile of waste and rot that had no business piquing his interest, he'd uncovered a most interesting treasure indeed. It was a spool of thread, no bigger than the core of an apple. He did remember apples, in a color he'd only ever seen in a dream. Mostly red, but screaming red. Redder than his own hair. Certainly redder than blood. More than that, it was more than red. Through it all were shimmers and flecks of emerald and black, shining and shifting like an oil slick. The color called his name like a friend from the past, and his hands snapped to it like a magnet. Curiously, it was completely and bafflingly clean. Not a speck of mud or rust marred its burning veins. Even curiouser, he found he could not break it. He tried to tear a piece off to mend a tear in his coat, but no matter how hard he pulled it, it would not snap. He could not cut it either, not with his teeth nor with his knife. Truly the most remarkable find. A priceless treasure. He spent hours, maybe days, poring over it, examining it, unraveling it, and spooling it up again, trying to decipher if it was magic or long-forgotten science. He puzzled over it until he fell asleep under the stars. Somewhere under the ground, the lost girl had fallen asleep in the spot where she'd dropped. She tried to retrace her steps, tried to find where she'd lost track of herself, tried to find the savior end of the trusted red thread. She'd circled and spiraled until blood seeped through the cracking soles of her shoes, searched until her lamp burnt out, and she shuffled through the black with her hands on the damp walls of the caves. It had been hours and hours in the pure dark, maybe even days. As above, so below, the two wandering souls, at two ends of the thread, slept, and in their dreams they found the same heading: follow the water. In his dreams, the boy heard it like a voice across a lake. It was a curious mystery. In her dreams, the girl saw it in the night sky like a gathering of stars. It was a strange comfort. It was all either of them could remember upon awaking, and they puzzled over it from miles apart. In the light of a new day, the boy decided that following the water was as good a way as any to look for treasure. Water carried secrets and wishes, fool's gold, and messages in bottles. It flowed down and out and carved new paths on and on forever. New paths to explore, new things to seek and find. And so, he searched the rubble until he found a stick that formed a crossroads and got to dowsing. Follow the water. In the dark of a seemingly endless mine, the girl thought that following the water seemed like the exact opposite of a good idea. Water flowed down, down, down forever, and she was desperate to get up and out and never go down again. Then again, the more she thought about it, the less she was able to think of anything else. Follow the water, follow the water, follow the water. She supposed that blind and lost and desperate, it was as good an option as any. Water always found a way out, didn't it? It could wear its way through stone with enough time. Maybe with luck it already had, somewhere down here. And so, she searched on her knees on the cave floor till her hands found soft mud, till her ears found the quietest babble of the thinnest stream of runoff. Soon enough, the boy and his stick found a pull in the air that seemed to beckon due east. It felt stronger than a mere shift in the wind. It felt closer to a rope tugging him forward from somewhere inside his ribcage. He followed it. Soon enough, the girl had her fingers dug into the earth and strained to listen to the pull of the water, however near still it seemed. There was the faintest pull beckoning due left of where she was facing. She stood, carefully found the wall, laid her hand upon it, and followed. In time, they both found a well. At least the boy could tell it was a well, being as he was on the top end of it. It was so covered in near-dead moss you could barely see the stone of it, but it was definitely a well. The girl, on the downmost side of it, could only feel an ankle-deep puddle at her feet, could only see the tiniest sliver of light above her, round and shallow as the moon. It was impossible to tell just how far out of reach it was, but it seemed quite far indeed. Thought the both of them. There must be some sort of treasure down there, thought the boy. Clean water at the very least. I wonder how deep it goes. There must be a way to get up there, thought the girl. There has to be. I wonder if I can make it. The boy under the sky had tied the end of his screaming red thread to a palm-sized rock. He slipped the spool of it over his makeshift sword like a little fishing rod, tossed the rock down the well, and waited for the splash. The spool seemed to spin forever, unraveling but never running out, until it stopped. No splash as far as he could hear. The girl, far underground, heard the splash like the crash of a meteor or a gunshot, echoing endlessly through the darkness about her. Felt the rush of air go just past her ear. She shrieked, startled, throwing her hands out blindly in a meager idea of self-defense against an imagined threat that she couldn't see. She froze when she felt her hands brush a rope. No, not a rope. A thread. The boy was so startled he nearly dropped to his knees for cover behind the well. He wasn't expecting the cacophony that rose from the dark. 1,000 echoing shrieks bouncing up and out. A monster? A A feral beast with teeth for eyes and hands for teeth? The girl grasped for the thread, giving it an experimental tug. Reaching down, she found the source of the crash. A rock. A perfect handhold. These things didn't just fall from the sky. An explorer, about to make an as ill-advised endeavor as hers, or a rescuer, accidental or otherwise. "I'm here," she called, as loud as she could. The words echoed around her, deafening, looping out into pure noise. Fuck. Hoping against hope, she gave the thread another experimental tug. Then she gave it an experimental lean, somehow knowing it would hold her. It did. There was something caught on the end of the boy's line. The shrieking continued, up and out and around, enveloping him. For the briefest of moments he considered letting go of the line, call it self-preservation. But just as quickly as the impulse came, it vanished. He was an explorer, a seeker, an archaeologist of the old world. In a world of dust and rust and broken things, what could be more exciting than finding something, anything, alive? The girl started to climb. Slowly but surely, the light got closer, brighter. She began to less so climb and simply rise, as something on the other end of the line grew either stronger or more confident. The boy heaved and heaved and heaved. Something was happening. He could feel it. Something was about to be different forever. He had cast a line and hooked a plot. The second most remarkable, priceless find in as many days. And it was getting closer. He almost had it over the edge of the well. One more pull. One more clamber, one more vertical step, one more push over the edge of a crumbling wall of rock, and there she was. There it all was. The clouded sun, the scorched, beautiful earth, and there, clutched in her hands so hard it left a thin red scar in each palm, was the screaming red thread. Wait, that was her screaming red thread. Her red, her shimmers of emerald and night sky, her totem plucked from a dream, or however the hell she got it. The hand flashed to her belt where the spool still remained, and somehow, miraculously, had become attached to the lifeline in her hands, which in turn led directly to a spool on a radio antenna in the hand of a boy with screaming red hair. "How did you," she tried to say, "Holy shit," said the boy. "How did you get down there?" "Who are you?" said the girl. "A friend?" said the boy. "I mean, if you are. If I'm what? A friend?" Silence. Pause. The breath before the song begins. "I mean," said the girl, "we must be friends. You saved me." "I didn't mean to," said the boy. "I was just scavenging." "Well," said the girl, "thank you all the same." "But I think you're right," said the boy. "We must be friends already, somehow. I mean, look." The girl was already looking. She was still staring at the thread, her thread, in the red she'd never seen anywhere else, that had somehow become an unbroken line between them, seamless, as though it had always been that way, as though it was never any other way. Their thread now, she supposed, somehow. "Curious, isn't it?" said the girl. "Immensely," said the boy. They stood, for a time, in a silence far too comfortable for those who were strangers moments before. Because they had been, hadn't they? Rain began to fall. Once upon a time. Hey there, Wastelanders. This has been a Tale from the Wastes, written by Longshot for me as a lovely Christmas present, with me loaning my voice to the words on the page. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the wastes.